Hi there. Uh, First off, I wanted to start out by saying yes, I did officially change the name of the channel. It was just me, Michael Green, but I found out today that there are a lot of Michael Greens, a lot more than I thought. I knew it was a fairly common name, but the exact spelling, no middle initial, E on the end of Green, the whole 9 yards. There were multiple Michael Green YouTube channels. So I just decided, okay, now is the time for me to go ahead and change it to the Big Story Gazette. So now I'm still Michael, but the channel is now officially known as the Big Story Gazette. What I want to talk about today is your our self multidimensionality. I had a previous video about the basic concept of multidimensionality, but I want to talk to it on a more personal level, more personal basis. Because just as the universe is multidimensional, each one of us is multidimensional. And there's a you on every frequency, every level, every dimensional octave, whatever you want to call it, there's a you there. In the 12 dimensional model that I speak of, there's a you. Your identity is always first person. Wherever you are on any dimension, your identity is always first person. It's not like you go look at you here in the 3D go look at you somewhere else on another dimension. You are always first person. Examples, personal experience in this area. There was a time where this body, this vehicle, was known as multiple different names other than Michael. And I'll explain. Each time I experienced that, yeah, each time I experience that, I'll share with you, and it won't be too long because, but it happened. Makes sense. Again, whether you believe me or not, that's your call. The first time, wait, let me start with this. Matter of fact, I just looked up in the dictionary. God, I can't even, I have to do everything online now because there's no printed word anymore. But I went online and I looked up the word entrain. Well, I was looking for the word entrainment, and all I can get was the verb entrain, and then they would give you entrainment is the noun form of that word, derivative of that word. So I'm going to read. This is Merriam-Webster Dictionary. The definition of entrain: to draw along with or after oneself. To draw in or transport something such as a solid particle or gas by the flow of a fluid. To incorporate air bubbles into concrete. To determine or modify the phase or period of. An example they give: circadian rhythms entrained by a light cycle. The one that I'm going to use for my purposes is the first definition, and that's to draw along with or after oneself. That's pretty cool. I just I saw that exactly from my personal experience, and I really like it. So watch this. Okay, what happened? What happened to me? Okay, because this is my story. What happened to me in my uh, awakening process? There was a period of time where another me came into the body. There's a concept called a walk-in, but this wasn't a walk-in. Where in the metaphysical sense, a walk-in is where I voluntarily, by prearrangement, before I incarnated to this body, I leave the body, and another being comes into the body. A completely different consciousness comes into the body, and then walked in, and now they walk around, and whoever they are, that's what the body's called. Well, I didn't experience, I might have, but it didn't feel like a walk-in experience to me, because simply this: I was always present. The Michael that's talking to you right now, I was always there. But what happened is a higher aspect, a higher vibrational aspect of my multidimensional self came into the body. Basically, the vehicle that I talked about came into the vehicle and sat in the driver's seat. And I, Michael, sat over in the passenger seat, buckled up, safety first, but I wasn't driving the vehicle. The first being that came in, his name was Nemish. Nemesh, Nemish. And he was a higher frequency of the multidimensional me than me, Michael, that, quote, crawled into the body, born into the body, incarnated into the body. Well, Nemesh's presence and all the others, the phenomena that I experienced was entrainment. And I'll read, and here's where I chuckle, because I'll read that again, the definition that I'm using, the first definition, but I'm going to read it and view it from Nemesh's perspective. To draw along with or after oneself. So what Nemesh did is he came in vibrating at a higher frequency than Michael, and with him in the driver's seat running the show, and he'd identified as Nemesh. Freaked everybody out. A lot of people had a hard time with it because, I was known all these years as Michael, and then all of a sudden, ooh, did he join a cult? Yada, yada, yada. The whole 9 yards. Some family members supported it, others didn't. I know you as Mike. You're going to always be Mike, not even Michael. I was going by Mike then. And it was like, some people, and that was okay. I didn't expect any. But whenever I met a new person, whenever we met somebody new that we had never met before, we introduced ourselves as Nemish. Simple as that. Because that's who was sitting in the driver's seat. It's like analogy, a model that I use to describe it is like, how you have a small business, and you have the little magnetic identification signs that you can magnetically stick to the door of your vehicle, and you're using your personal vehicle for uh, your company, your small business purposes. So by law, in order especially to write the usage of that vehicle off, you have to get you one of those little magnetic signs and put it on the side of your door. So when you're operating your vehicle for business purposes, you have the sign there, and that identifies the vehicle for that purpose. Well, it's like Nimish is driving the vehicle now. So Nimish put his name on the vehicle, and he's driving around. So the vehicle is known as Nimish. Even though Michael's sitting over here in the passenger seat, Nimish is behind the wheel. And Nimish, being Nimish, vibrated at a higher frequency than Michael. So now, back to that definition. To draw along with or after oneself. So the oneself is Nimish. And he's drawn along Michael, because wherever Nimish goes, Michael gets to go along for the ride. And in the presence of that, the entraining, Michael is being drawn along with and after Nimish. Michael is hanging out and following Nimish, so consequently, Michael's frequency raises to that of Nimish. Here was Michael, and then Nimish came in, and then Michael's frequency after a period of time was raised to Nimish's. And then lo and behold, overnight, without Michael's awareness, Michael's permission, or, consultation, Nimish left. And a being known as Zeal showed up. Well, Zeal was vibrating at a higher frequency than Nimish, because it was like, here's Michael, and then Nimish comes in and entrains Michael up to Nimish's level. When Michael was there and stable, now that's the key thing, stable, and everything's hunky-dory, Nimish left and Zeal came in. And Zeal got behind the wheel, changed the name on the vehicle, and drove around the vehicle as Zeal, vibrating at a higher frequency than Nimish, because Michael's now at Nimish's level, and then Michael got up to Zeal's level. And then once that's stabilized, without Michael's consultation, i.e. me, Zeal left, and Ativar came in. And Ativar sat behind the wheel of the vehicle, put his nameplate on the side of the vehicle or on the front of the vehicle, and he drove the vehicle around for a while. And in his presence, Michael's frequency rose up a little bit more. And then after a period of time, and this had nothing to do with Michael's say-so, Zeal left, or excuse me, Ativar left, and then Michael was instructed by higher self, a larger, even larger aspect of my multidimensional self, to, you're good now. This is where you are. This is where we need you to be. So now, go back to your birth to earth name. My birth to earth name was Michael. Don't go by Mike anymore. You're now known as Michael. And from that point forward, I'm back in the driver's seat. I'm over here in the driver's seat now. From that point forward, I told everybody, I'm going by Michael. That's my name. You all know it. But I prefer to be Michael. Not Mike, not Mikey, because I've been a Mikey a bunch of times. Michael. When I meet somebody for the first time, I introduce myself as Michael. That's the name I've been going by well over 20 years now, because all of this happened in the mid-90s. So I've been Michael for over the last 20 years, not Mike. Now there's a couple members of my family that insist on calling me Mike, and I'm okay with that. But there are others that refer to me as Michael, and I appreciate that. But to each his own. I'm not going to beat them up about it, But if ever I meet anybody for the very first time, my name is Michael. That's what I'm known by. That's what I go by, and that's how I introduce myself. So that's just a quick, oh, one other experience to give you an example of our multidimensional selves. I had an experience. I don't know if you're familiar with QHT Therapy, but this was similar. And this was back in the 90s. Like I said, I've been around for a while. This is back in the 90s, the kind of early to mid 90s. And Georgianne and I took the Flower of Life workshop. Back then, this was before internet, before everything. You did a workshop, you attended a workshop for a week long, and a weekend or a week long. This was a week long workshop. Drumville Melchizedek. I'm sure you might be familiar with Flower of Life. It's still around. It's online now. Drumville's still around, but back then this was a week long, and facilitators would host it. And this was hosted in Chicago, and they put on the workshop there. And the couple that were the facilitators, one of them, the woman, one of the things that she did on the side was very similar to what QHHT therapy is today, from Dolores Cannon. It might have been that because Dolores Cannon was around then, I believe, but I didn't really ask. But anyway, Georgianne and I both booked sessions with Karen. That was the woman's name, Karen Cash, and we both booked sessions with her on the same day. But Karen did her sessions separately, and for this particular reason, this type of therapy, we didn't insist on doing it together. So in my session, and Georgianne was in the other room when I did my session. And when my session was done, past life regression and a bunch of other things, when I was done, I got up, I went, sat in the living room, and Georgianne was in the den, and she did her session. Well, one of the experiences I had was an other dimensional self. And there's a neat twist to this when I'm done sharing it. Well, anyway, I was me walking down a corridor of a spaceship. Now, hear me. Listen to my words. Not what you think I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying. I was me, first person, walking down the corridor of a spaceship. I knew who I was. I knew where I was. I knew why I was there. I was the co-commander of a fleet of 17 spaceships. I was the co-commander of a fleet of 17 spaceships. I knew it was me. You know when you dress yourself, every morning you get up and you dress yourself, you put your clothes on, and then you go about your day, and you don't, throughout your day, you don't run around periodically standing in front of a mirror or looking, purposely walking in front of a reflective surface to verify that you're you, to verify that what you put on that day is still there. It's not what we do. You know who you are. You know why you are. You generally know where you are. And like I said, you know why you're there. And you just go about your moment to moment to moment existence. Well, that's what I experienced from the first person perspective. I was me from the first person perspective. I didn't see me because I was me. And I knew who I was, where I was, and why I was. And I also knew who I was with. I was walking down the corridor with my companion. Now, remember I said I was a co-commander. I was walking down the corridor with the co-commander, the other commander of the fleet of 17 spaceships. and it was Georgianne. And we know that we experienced the same thing. And I know it was her just because, like, there she is. I'm going about my life from the first person perspective. I'm going about my daily moment to moment existence. And I know who I am and where I am, why I am, and I know who I'm with. And I know it's her walking beside me. And I know who she is. She's the co commander of this fleet of 17 spaceships. Well, when it was all said and done, and she and I were walking home from our sessions with Karen, we started sharing what our experiences were. And we had a lot of different similar experiences where we were both presently there in different forms, but we were both presently there. Well, this one particular one, when I started sharing about the spaceship, she looked and she goes, "Ah, me too." And then all of a sudden, I had the presence of mind to say, let's not talk about it anymore. Because remember, I said that I've been in science fiction since fourth grade. I've always been science oriented. So I was fully aware of what a double blind test was. A double blind test is when you conduct a test here, a study, double blind study or double blind test, whatever you want to call it, but you do the process over here, and then you do an identical process over here. And the two processes, teams, whatever it is, they have no connection together. They're generally not even aware that they're doing the same thing. And if you get the same result here and here, then your premise, your theory, whatever you want to call it, is good. Whether you're trying to prove something or disprove something. So the moment I realized that we were talking about the same thing, I said, stop. Let's not talk about it anymore till we get home. And we lived close enough to where it was within walking distance. Because like I said, we lived in the inner city of Chicago. So we walked home, we went to our apartment, and I got 2 pieces of paper and some pen, and I said, okay. And we shared what we were doing. We both were aware of us from the first person perspective, walking down the corridor of a spaceship. We knew who we were, where we were, why we were there, and who we were with. We knew what we had on. We both knew what we had put on that morning when we got up. We put on a uniform. But the thing about the uniform, it had an emblem on the right shoulder, or the left part of the chest, right here, had an emblem. And what I asked her to do, and here's the double blind study, the double blind test. I said, take this piece of paper and this pen and go in the bedroom and draw, as best you can, draw the emblem that was on my uniform when you looked at me. Because you don't run around, like I was saying earlier, one doesn't run around constantly looking down to make sure you got the right clothes on that you put on that morning, or you don't run around purposely walking in front of a mirror or a reflective surface to make sure you still got the clothes on you put on that morning. That's just not how one operates. You know who you are, where you are, yada, yada, yada. So I said, you draw the emblem you saw on my uniform, and I'll sit here in the dining room separate from you, and I'll draw the emblem that I saw on your uniform. And she understood what we were doing. So she went in the bedroom, drew her emblem. I sat there and I drew mine. We got back together and they were the same emblem. I shit you not. They were the same emblem. A circle and a triangle linked together. I should have drew it. Yeah. Let me draw it right quick. Show you what we saw. Actually, if I'd known that I was going to do this, I would have drew it out earlier, but I didn't think that I was going to do it. But anyway, here it is. Can you see that? Circle and triangle linked together. And they're not overlapping, but they were linked. But this is a two-dimensional piece of paper. But it was on our uniforms. It was embroidered or stitched or however it was displayed to where they were linking and overlapping, interlinked. But we both drew the exact same thing because we saw the exact same thing on our same emblem on our uniform. That to me is concrete proof that there is a me on the higher dimensions or there's an us, me and her, on the higher dimensions, higher than this one at least. I don't know how many octaves, but at least not here. But that I exist somewhere else because I've been me. That's where I said earlier, I've been there and back. I have been me on the other dimensions, and I just proved it to you right now. I have a firm memory of that experience. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't an hallucination. It's a memory. Just as I can tell you something I did when I was a kid, or something I did, driving a big truck and experiencing the big truck, or something I did in school, college. It's in my mental Rolodex of my memory. I was there. I experienced that. It was real. And again, like I was saying earlier about Bilbo Baggins, there and back again, The Hobbit. I don't care whether you believe me or not. I know it was true. We are multidimensional. I am, you are, everybody is. I'm going to leave it at that now. Blessings on your journey.